Okay, let's dive straight into this. If you're looking at applying for a doctoral program in the United States, you've probably felt that wave of absolute overwhelming panic. You know the feeling, right? You're competing against brilliant minds from all over the globe. There's just an absolute avalanche of information out there, and the stakes literally could not be higher. Applying can honestly feel like tossing your documents into a black box and just crossing your fingers. But that is exactly why we're here today. Welcome to this explainer. We're going to serve as your ultimate demystifying guide to the whole U.S. PhD application process. We've taken all the critical data and strategies from the source material and built a highly structured roadmap for you. So by the end of this explainer, you'll have a clear, actionable path forward, completely removing the guesswork from your journey. Let's get started. So here's our cognitive map for today. First, we'll look at the U.S. PhD advantage. Second, we'll cover the master timeline and tracking. Third, we dive into the roadmap from preparation to outreach. And fourth, we'll finish up with the roadmap from dossier to decision. All right, Section 1, the U.S. PhD advantage. If you're holding on to any anxiety about whether this system is accessible or even right for you, we're going to break down some massive barriers right out of the gate. 100%. I really want you to let that number sink in, because it is fundamentally a game changer. In the U.S. system, full funding means that 100% of your tuition is covered. But wait, it doesn't stop at tuition. Full funding also includes living stipends to pay for your rent, your groceries, and even comprehensive health insurance. You are essentially being hired by the university to do research. So if you are worried about taking on massive, crippling debt for a doctoral degree, you can just leave that fear at the door. This absolutely changes the calculus for applicants. And this next point shatters a massive global academic myth. In a lot of the world, the standard expectation is that you absolutely got to have a master's degree first, and you have to show up on day one with a completely polished, pre-written research proposal. Contrast that with the liberating reality of the U.S. system. You can actually apply for direct entry right after finishing your bachelor's degree. And even better, most U.S. programs do not require a pre-written research proposal at the application stage. The U.S. system is actually designed to mold you during your first few years. You go there to figure out the exact parameters of your research alongside your faculty, taking specialized coursework before you ever finalize your dissertation topic. Moving right along to Section 2, Master Timeline and Tracking. Okay, so a U.S. PhD typically takes about 5 years to complete. Because this is a marathon and definitely not a sprint, zooming out to see the macro timeline is absolutely crucial. Notice here that the clock doesn't start a month or two before the deadline. No way. You've got to start building your profile a full year in advance. Why? Because that year is packed with taking standardized exams, drafting personal statements, and networking with professors. Applications open very early in the cycle, with the hard deadlines falling right in the middle of winter, typically between November and January. And all of this is aiming for a program start date in the following August. So you must reverse engineer your entire schedule. If you don't map this out backward from that August start line, you're going to find yourself scrambling and totally missing out when those winter deadlines hit. Now, because of that sprawling timeline, you absolutely need a central command station. Think of the Excel tracking sheet as your ultimate safety net against unforced errors. Imagine the absolute panic of mixing up a $100 application fee deadline or, completely forgetting which professor you emailed at which university. From day one, you need to meticulously log your target universities, their specific deadlines, the application fees, the exact names of the professors you want to work with, and the real-time status of your cold emails and interviews. Memory is not a strategy here, folks. Meticulous tracking is. Which brings us to Section 3, the roadmap from preparation to outreach. This is where all that theory transforms into strategic action. This first phase of our 10-step roadmap takes you from internal preparation right into outward outreach. Step 1 is defining your why, which we are going to dive into deeply in just a second. Step 2 is mastering that timeline we just looked at, making sure all your preparation crosses the finish line months before those winter deadlines. And step 3, that's about pinpointing your specializations. It's not enough to just say, hey, I want to study economics. You need to be saying, I want to study the microeconomic impacts of urban zoning laws. Admissions committees are looking for a laser-like focus on specific problems you want to solve, not just broad generalities. Let's actually pause on this quote directly from the source material regarding step 1, because it completely grounds everything we're doing in harsh emotional reality. Establish an honest motivation to carry you through 5 years of setbacks and self-doubt. Look, a PhD isn't just going to classes and reading books. It's 5 years of failed experiments, intense imposter syndrome, and grueling peer review.
If your why is just, well, I want the title of doctor, what happens when your very first major paper gets completely dismantled by peer reviewers? That superficial motivation just won't sustain you. You need a deeply rooted, honest drive before you ever open an application portal.
Once your motivation is locked in, you hit step 4, honestly auditing your CV. You need to list out all of your research, any publications, and relevant clinical or lab work. Now, here's a kind of counterintuitive but highly strategic rule for you. If you look at your CV and realize it lacks strict alignment with your target-specific field, don't just apply anyway and hope for the best. Pause. Take a breath. Spend 6 solid months intentionally building up that exact experience, maybe as a research assistant. Spending 6 months proactively gaining alignment in a lab is vastly superior to applying blindly, getting rejected everywhere, and then having to wait a full year for the next cycle anyway. Makes sense, right?
And that brings us to steps 5 and 6. Step 5 is immediately building that Excel tracking spreadsheet we talked about earlier. You absolutely want that infrastructure in place before you even touch step 6, which is scouting faculty and labs. Finding the right mentor isn't just about making sure your research matches. It's arguably the single most important relationship you'll form in this entire 5-year process. You are literally choosing your boss, your advocate, and your guide for half a decade. To bring some actual order to this potentially chaotic process of scouting those mentors, the source material provides 2 highly effective strategies. Method A is what we call a bottoms-up approach. You basically fall down a rabbit hole reading dense, fascinating papers in your specific niche on Google Scholar, and then you hunt down where those specific authors teach and run their labs. Method B is a top-down approach. You browse the department directories of universities you deeply respect and actively search for faculty whose research interests match yours. Utilizing both of these methods ensures you cast a wide but highly targeted net.
Okay, you've got your targets. Step 7 is sending those cold emails to these professors. The absolute golden rule here: keep these emails short, personalized, and above all, human. Professors get dozens of robotic, copy-pasted templates in their inboxes every single week. You gotta stand out by showing genuine, specific curiosity about their recent work. Cite a specific paper of theirs, explain your alignment, and ask them directly if they're accepting new PhD students for the upcoming cycle. Then, step 8 naturally follows. As the replies start trickling in, you must meticulously tier your responses. And here is exactly how you tier them. You must ruthlessly prioritize your energy toward the universities where professors actually give you positive feedback, or even better, invite you to a quick Zoom chat. Do not take this lightly. A Zoom chat is basically the unofficial first interview. If a professor takes 15 minutes out of their busy day to hop on a video call with you before you've even formally applied, that is a massive green light. That program should shoot straight to the very top of your Excel tracking sheet. And finally, section 4, the roadmap from dossier to decision. We're in the final leg of the roadmap now. The outreach phase is over, and this is where all of your meticulous preparation transforms into hard submissions. The final 2 tactical steps of our 10-step roadmap are gathering your application dossier and then navigating that high-stakes interview season to finalize your placement. Let's slow down just a bit and define exactly what goes into this dossier, which is split into core needs and variable needs. The core needs are pretty much universally required: your perfectly aligned CV, a compelling statement of purpose, or SOP, which acts as the narrative heart of your application. You're also going to need 3 strong letters of recommendation, your official transcripts, and language proficiency scores like the IELTS or TOEFL if you're an international applicant. But, and this is absolutely crucial, do not neglect the variable needs. You have to check individual university websites carefully. For instance, the GRE is tricky. A lot of schools have dropped it entirely, but if you forget to take it for a school that still demands it, that's a tragic, unforced error that will disqualify you instantly. The same goes for specific writing samples or extra essays.
So once you hit submit between November and January, you enter the final waiting phase. Formal interviews generally occur between December and March. And hey, this is exactly where those earlier cold emails and 15-minute Zoom chats pay massive dividends. Because you've already broken the ice, talking with faculty during formal interviews is going to be significantly less daunting. Once the interviews wrap up, everything builds toward one highly standardized, monumental date in the U.S. academic calendar. April 15th. Burn this date into your brain. Across the United States, April 15th is the universal, standardized deadline for PhD applicants to either accept or decline their funding offers. This is it, the ultimate decision day. By this date, all the anxiety and waiting is finally over,
and the trajectory of your next 5 years is officially decided. And what exactly happens when you finally say yes on or before April 15th? Well, you secure the ultimate prize of this arduous process. Accepting that fully funded offer formally triggers the university to issue your I-20 document. That single piece of paper is literally the key that unlocks your ability to apply for a student visa and legally step foot into the U.S. to begin your research career. It is the tangible physical culmination of a year's worth of strategic effort, tracking, and outreach. We've covered a lot today: the structural advantages, the full funding, the tracking sheets, the cold emailing, and the exact roadmap to get you to that I-20 document. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want to pull back from the tactical stuff to something deeply personal. Look at everything this process demands of you. Before you build a single spreadsheet and before you fall down a rabbit hole reading dense papers on Google Scholar, ask yourself, what is the honest, unshakable why that will carry you through your 5-year journey? Figure that out, and the rest of this roadmap is simply a matter of execution. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now, what's your why?